Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source, Comic Boom / first time in a long time Dark Knight Nation collaboration. We are here to celebrate the Kickstarter launch of Dark Knight Nation, Trevor's fifth Kickstarter, the fifth issue of the Helix Project. 4 previously successful Kickstarters, so congrats on that. And here's to a successful fifth in anticipation of the sixth and final coming. So yeah, I'll raise my drink, my sparkling water here to Trev. Hey, Godspeed, good luck.
Thanks, man.
In the interest of full disclosure, everybody, I have not yet gone. Today's been the first day I haven't had a chance to go and pledge, but I will be doing that shortly. Maybe I'll do it live on camera. So
everybody can follow suit. Guys, be influenced. This isn't peer pressure. It's just your turn.
That's right. So Rocky, thoughts on Trevor number 5? Did you ever think when you first started reviewing comics with this crazy cat we'd be sitting here like this?
No, I definitely did not. But you know, because one thing about you, Trevor, you certainly talk the talk, and I didn't think you'd ever walk the walk, but you have, and you've definitely put your money where you put your money literally where your mouth is. And you're holding yourself accountable, and you're doing a pretty damn good job of it, because there's Kickstarter's filled with a lot of people that tried their best, but despite best efforts, don't quite make it. But so far, you've risen to the top, and you've done a pretty damn good job. So, I mean, hey, it's congrats, man. How does it feel?
First of all, thank you guys. I appreciate that. Second of all, it's weird, you know. I think at this point the wheels are just sort of spinning, and for me now, it's always like, what is next? What are we doing moving forward? So for me, it is exciting launching this issue, because I say this with no hyperbole. This is easily the best thing I've ever done so far. Working with a brand new artist, Samuel E Wonze, out of Lagos, Nigeria. And he is so good and so incredible that I re-edited the last half of issue 5 and added 4 more pages to account for, I think, just the way he excels visually in the storytelling language of comics, so that we can add more impact to the end of this issue. But all in all, I'm incredibly proud of this issue. And I mean, down to the cover art, I mean, as you guys might be able to see on the screen, the cover art for this issue features the 2 best pairings of covers I think we've seen so far, like top to bottom. So I'm super, super excited. And just thrilled to be bringing this book out to people. You know, we've spent the last year kind of building up the story and challenging these characters, and this issue marks, I think, one of the biggest mountains for these characters to conquer, and I'm really excited to share that with everybody.
Yeah, maybe we should take a step back and remind everybody what the series is about.
Yeah. So Area 51, the Helix Project, primarily takes place in a UFO hysteric America under the shadow of the Cold War. And it presupposes that the UFO alien specimen that was mass sighted in Roswell, New Mexico in the late 40s has masqueraded as human for a few decades, until he eventually exposes his alien physiology in a last-ditch attempt to save a human child's life. But in doing so, he's murdered in cold blood in front of his son, who is a half-extraterrestrial, half-human hybrid. And so Kent, named after a certain other alien from comics, for good reason, sort of struggles to pick up the pieces as he grows up for the next 13 years, until he's confronted by a mysterious letter not only claiming that the sender was there the day that his father was murdered, but that they somehow have a means of getting him back. So he's driven to uncover the circumstances surrounding his father's death, obviously questioning the cryptic motivations of whoever this person is, and is meanwhile sort of dropped into the jaw of this genetics Cold War conspiracy, and is forced to face a twisted ghost from his past that plunges a dagger into everything he knows about himself and ultimately what it means to be human.
Is this the penultimate issue? Is it 6 issues going to be total, or is this the penultimate issue, Trevor?
This is the penultimate issue. So this issue will set up basically the climax of the entire series. So it is a big one.
Well,
And no
I
plans to at this point to go back and tell more of the story. You feel like you're really putting a period on the end of the sentence.
It's one of those situations where I've had small ideas in ways that I might be able to play around in this space in the future. But there is a pretty definitive punctuation placed at the end of the story for good reason, with it being my first comics endeavor. One, I wanted to prove to myself that I could finish a story and do it well, and two, I just think that these characters had their natural ending, their arcs had their natural ending at the end of 6, based on what I had plotted out. And the closer I've gotten, the more and more that proves to be true. I think I'm really big about maintaining the creative integrity of the story first, and unless I have the right idea, these characters, this story is going to rest. Um, Now, if down the line I become the writer to tell the expansion of this story in some way, shape, or form, I'll go back to it, but only if it feels right.
Gotcha. That makes sense. You said earlier, it feels like the wheels are just turning at this point. So you feel like, here's the other thing, right? Like we've talked about this before. You're doing these in quick succession as opposed to a lot of Kickstarters. They take a big, long break in between, which is one of the things I don't like about Kickstarter. When you're really into a story and you're used to that monthly, chunk of that story, that monthly installment, it's not always the case with Kickstarter. Um, do you feel like in a way this thing sort of has its own momentum and you're just hanging on for dear life?
It's starting to. I mean, the momentum was like sheer force of will. I mean, you guys have seen it from the beginning, and sort of, the beginning felt like I was walking around with restraints and weights, and for me, it was just about building that through sheer muscle. And now we're at the point where a year later, I mean, we've done 3 shows this year from different stretches in all of the North American continent. So it's weird to say. Certainly, yes, I think that it definitely feel like the weights are coming off, and that we're beginning to carry ourselves. But I think the impression and the struggle of having to you know drag this thing along and push it in front of people is still pretty present.
well, I know
Yeah, I
what.
mean, you did. Go ahead, Rocky.
I was just going to say, like, one of the things that I've noticed is my own impatience in reading it, because I'm so curious to know how this ends, and I'm waiting for a long time, and we're going to get a 5th issue and then a 6th, and
Mhm.
I personally am really, I think I can't wait till this is a trade, and I'm really hoping that things work out well enough that you can put this in a trade, because I think it's going to be that much more rewarding an experience reading it, because I know coming at the end of issue 4. I know Kent is right there in that compound, along with his, I guess this potential love interest slash. I'm not. I'm still unclear about her motives. And there's the Colonel there, and all these other machinations. I don't want to ruin it for people that haven't read from the beginning, but it really does seem to be building to something. And the topic and the subject matter is just right up there with conspiracy and everything else. So I guess my question is, are you hoping to put a trade together at some point on this whole thing as well?
Oh yeah, I mean that would be a real stepping stone for me personally and in my career. I'm all about the reading experience and curating the most accessible way to digest the material. And because of the nature of indie comics and self-publishing through my company, the potential of a trade is entirely dependent on the success of these single issues. I do my best to incentivize it as much as I can, trying to deliver value in the physical production and in the amount of content. But I would love to do a trade, and I would love to get the groundswell of support enough to make it a nice premium trade with really cool features. We've been toying around with it, as you can see there in that image, with the new printing of issue 1, where the base of this brand new printing not only has a awesome new cover by Adrian Bone, but the original version is embossed. We also have a new foil version that's done in limited print. But both of them feature a lot of cool behind the scenes material about what it's like making comics, both from the writing, editing perspective and from the art perspective. So, we're already sort of dipping our toes into those pools, and I would love to be able to go all out on a trade eventually.
You got to go with a trade that has like 5 preview pages for your next project, because I know you got a lot of ideas in that brain of yours.
Oh yeah, some of those things are beginning to be worked on, which is really really exciting, and almost feels like an acid trip. Being able to play in a couple different spaces, so it's incredibly exciting.
Yeah,
I
you
got
mentioned second printing for issue 1. I mean, that's a milestone. Certainly haven't had you on the show since you sold out of issue 1, which, I mean, not to say that I didn't expect you to be successful, but when I was there with you at Terrificon, just seeing the amount, and that was when issue I think 3 had just come out, and the
I,
campaign for 4 was just starting.
so we were running the campaign for issue 3 at the time, which was the
Oh,
the
okay,
struggle
running,
bus campaign.
right, yeah, running for 3. You had copies of issue 1 and issue 2. You had so
Mhm.
many copies of issue 1. Again, not to think that you wouldn't be successful, but I mean that was a lot of books to sell,
Mhm.
and to have sold out of the first printing. I mean that, yeah, just congrats, man, because that's really
Thank you.
cool. Did you ever think you'd get there? Did you ever think you wouldn't have boxes of issue 1 laying around?
Um, I figured, if I stuck to it, it would happen eventually. Did I think it was going to be happening within like a year? No, no way. I mean, like, for a little guy indie comic, I printed a decent amount of books. It was over 850 copies of issue 1. So, I mean, it's an incredible experience. It's humbling, and that's exactly why I kind of tried to take this new printing to the next level with that extra material, because I mean, it's a joy, it's an honor to be able to do that. And so, anything that I can deliver to the readers as a thank you, I will do to the best of my ability.
When did you where or when did you sell your last copies of the first printing of 1? Was it
So I have
still
a
in
couple
Canada,
spares
MegaCon?
for the most part that I'm thinking about having graded. Um, maybe a graded copy of each cover for myself, and
Yeah.
then potentially just kind of having a couple to grade to maybe sign and get certified by CGC or CBCS, to then maybe either raffle away or give away to one of the backers that's been with us since the beginning. I wanted to be able to do something special for the people that have been with us on the ground floor. So um, yeah, so I do have a couple of copies, but not many by any stretch. Maybe 10 of each cover.
Well,
I know.
so doing the shows, did you learn anything? I mean, I heard MegaCon was outstanding for you. Give us some stories from the road.
Oh man, I mean, it's been a crazy year. I mean, I've been to Canada twice now. Um, MegaCon, as you said, I have Dallas coming up this week, and then Heroes Con in Charlotte the week after. But I mean, it's been a lot. I mean, primarily, I think you learn what is going to move at a convention versus what's going to move online, because they're very different spaces. And sometimes I think our my brain, at least as somebody who's coming out with a product, kind of conflate those two things, and you think they're going to be similar, and it's not really always the case. Um, but I think really it's made me more and more enthusiastic, to be honest with you. I am more and more excited and more humbled by the amount of people that I get to talk to who connect with this thing that I made up, something that was just in my head for, months and months and months on end. Um, and it's given me a great appreciation just for where I am now. I mean, I'm not necessarily uh, writing Batman or anything, but we've crossed quite a distance, I think, in the last year. And being able to meet people and connect with people about this story has just put so much of that into perspective. And it's a great source of pride and joy for me. And I think it makes me better at these shows. It makes me more and more excited. I've pretty much completely shaken away any nerves, just because I'm far too happy, to be honest with you, when I'm at these shows and talking to people, to be nervous.
I noticed when you were at the. I mean, I was for those listening. I was at. I s- was with you at the Toronto Comic Con in March, and then in Calgary Expo in April. And I can personally attest to your passion when it comes to explaining Area 51, the Helix Project, to anyone approaching the table. It was always it was always amazing because you always have a way of explaining your story. You're quite passionate about it, and it's never quite the same. You describe it differently every time you say it. You describe the story, and I'm curious. You've uh, you've written this story in your head quite a bit. You know the ending. You've sort of talked about the ending. You've hinted to me and to others in interviews that the ending, you love the ending, but you figure people are either going to love it or they're going to not like it. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering, have you ever deviated at all about the direction of this story? You're at the end of issue 5 here. Is issue 6, has the ending changed so far, or are you still head set on the ending you've originally planned?
I mean, I pretty much had the DNA of the ending, almost from the start. Once, or at least pretty close to the start, once I understood exactly where Kent's character arc was going to go. Um, I mean, things have changed. Certain things about the way we're delivering information and trying to represent these characters have changed over the course of time. But to be honest with you, the ending has stayed the same for the most part. Um, from the beginning, it was in that way fully formed. But the meat of the story, getting there, was something that took the revising and the back and forth. Like I said earlier, for 5 we added an extra 4 pages. We didn't change the plot or anything. We changed the way we delivered it. So more along those lines for sure.
Yeah, we just a quick note. I know Hail the Lore on the chat asks if I might ask what is this story about. And Hail the Lore, I will tell you that Trevor explained at the beginning of the interview. He gave quite a good synopsis in terms of what Area 51, the Helix Project, is about. I can also advise that you can go to Kickstarter. A pretty good synopsis on at the Kickstarter page is also set forth uh, on Kickstarter, and it gives basically a good rundown of the characters and the general synopsis. It's definitely worth checking out, and you could right now you can get. Let me ask you, Trevor, what is the most economical if somebody wants to check out the first 5 issues here? Can you get them all just in one package digitally? You want to maybe talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So link in the description below. Kickstarter launched today. Not only will you get a pretty decent brief synopsis of everything, but you'll get previews at art from throughout the entire series, covers, interiors, everything, and a little bit of like an info session on what's happening, like a little breakdown on every issue without spoiling everything or anything really. Um, but you can grab all 5 issues digitally for $22, which not only includes the first 5 issues, but you also get the PDF for both the original printing of issue 1 and the new printing of issue 1. So with that, that new printing, you get the extra cover, the brand new cover, which is a great piece by Adrian Bonilla and colorist Marcio Freire. But there's also some really cool behind the scenes material in there, so I thought that would be cool to include. I don't know many places where you can get literally, what would that be, 85% plus bonus material of the entire series for $22. Physical copies really start as low as $5 to $6, and I mean, if I can humble brag for a little bit, I feel like the physical production value of these are quite high, given the price point. So, um, you know, uh, I think that it's relatively affordable for anybody that wants to get in. And the nice thing is, you get literally 85% of the story in one good go around before we do issue 6 at the end of the year.
Yeah, no, I agree. The quality of the comic is, I mean, in this day and age where if you want to talk about quality and you want to know how much better the quality is, just go pick up your average Marvel comic, and hopefully it won't crumble in your hands, or DC slightly better, but fortunately, I mean, the quality here is, I mean, it feels like almost 30 cardboard every single issue. You're getting a lot of good bang for your buck. And that's one of the things when we're at cons, we got that comment regularly from people that came to the table, looked through it. Uh, they commented on, it felt good. It felt like you were getting some good bang for your buck. And that's before you even read the story. But
Mm.
so this artist you talked about, what's his name again?
Samuel E Wonze. He is an artist based out of Lagos, Nigeria.
I'm curious, how do you come across him? I mean, the last one is from Spain, wasn't it? And this one's from Nigeria. How do you do that? How do you
Oh,
find him?
I mean, if I let you know my secrets, I'd have to kill you. Uh,
That's incredible.
um, I mean, it's honestly, I've gotten to the point now. I mean, we all know, anybody that's known me for, pre comic book days, or even now. I'm a pretty picky bastard. So, I've developed an eye for artistic talent and narrative storytelling over the last, I mean, since I used to do comic book criticism. And so, for me, it was just learning how to sort of scan the internet, and um, now that I've been doing this for a little while, I know exactly what I want, and I know how to sort of put out feelers to see if if the prospective hiree would sort of meet that. And Sam 100% does. He has been an absolute pleasure to work with. He is an artistic juggernaut, as you can tell by his cover right there on the screen. So you can only imagine what he's doing inside the book, and let me tell you, it's incredible. He's bringing some real big energy to this book.
Yeah, was that a tough call to change artists, or was your other artists couldn't move forward, or what was the?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I still have a lot of love for Marcelo and the work that we were able to do together. There were just a couple of complications that made it difficult to keep the pace, and in fact, sort of slowed the pace down a bit to begin with. And when it came down to it, it was a difficult call. Like I said, all love, all respect. We still have a relationship to potentially do something in the future. But I realized that I needed to work with somebody who was a little bit more available and ready to put out the material within a decent amount of time. And also, obviously, as you can tell from the cover art, I mean, he's incredible. And we were fortunate to sort of put feelers out when he did the secret variant cover for issue 4, which was like a stretch goal unlock for the last book. And sort of the rest was history.
Gotcha. Yeah, I did back. I had to get an issue 4 because I ashamedly didn't back because I was waiting. So with some of the problem, you mentioned 3 being a real tough one. So I was like, okay, with 4, I'm going to wait till the end, and then I can base my pledge on what might be needed. And then you surpassed it, and didn't. I totally forgot that I never pledged. So I got both covers of issue 4, and of course I had to get a variant for foil variant for the first issue, and of course in issue 5. So I've
Thanks,
backed.
man.
I have shared it on
Appreciate it.
Twitter. So yeah, looking forward to checking it out. Um, Rocky sort of touched on this a little bit when he was asking about the changing the ending, and obviously you left room for the story to have room to change a little bit organically. You mentioned adding some extra pages to issue 5. Kind of on the heels of that, what challenges has this presented so far? I mean, I feel like you're in the home stretch, even though you've got one more to go. I feel like you're in the home
Yeah.
stretch. What now that you've been doing this for a year, 4 successful Kickstarters on your belt. What are some of the challenges, going way back that you didn't anticipate, and what are, if any, of the things that you thought were going to be kind of tough that turned out to be just kind of, that's fine, easy?
Well, first, thank you for backing. I appreciate you. Second of all, to answer your question, um, I guess we'll start with the last part. In terms of what ended up being easier than I thought it would be, I guess ending the story. I was really nervous about giving this story its fitting ending. And while I had the plot down, right, like I knew how it was going to end, the way we were going to deliver that ending was a real sort of point of contention for me. I've never, finished a story like this, and obviously this is my first comic book series, so every sort of new step was always a fresh take. Um, but when it got time to do it, I think at that point I was sort of in rhythm and I knew these characters and I knew where their arcs needed to go. Not like what the characters wanted, but what they needed in order to sort of fulfill this story and this narrative journey that we've set out on. Um, but in terms of things that might have been more difficult, honestly, keeping track of inventory has been a little bit of a nightmare. Funny story. I don't know if I said this to you guys off screen when it was happening. Rocky definitely knows. So when I was packing for, I think, yeah, for Toronto, I had realized that I had about 40% of the inventory that I thought I did for issue one. And that prompted me to go into a frenzy for the reprint. So while we were in Toronto, I was actively dealing with like some production of the reprint of the brand new edition, like the trade dress and getting together all of the cool like pull quotes, because we were fortunate enough to get a statement from Marvel Zone Savage Avengers writer David Pepose, who is an also well-established force in the comic book Kickstarter community with the OZ. Great book, by the way. And this a longtime Marvel veteran, DG Chichester, was kind enough to actually write an entire introduction to the series. You can see a segment there on the screen, but there was a full introduction inside the new printing, which is humbling. And man, I remember when I got the email with their quotes. I remember looking at Rocky in the hotel room. I was like, dude, I might cry. I might cry right now. Um, I don't know. I think I kind of rambled off a little bit because that's what I do. But in the long run, yes. So keeping track of inventory has actually been quite difficult. And it's kind of put me in this position where actually I'll be spending most of tomorrow reorganizing and taking inventory. What's up, Patrick? You're the frickin' man. Thank you for showing up tonight. Um, Sorry, had to get that as I saw it. But yeah, inventory has definitely been a big thing. And in terms of what's been not difficult, but a surprise has been just like some of the interactions that I have at shows. And I mean this in the best way possible. We have people who naturally are sort of skeptical when they come up to the table and they will buy, one or two issues one day and they'll come back and they'll buy the rest. And they'll come back and they'll be super passionate, be like, I love this story. I really connected with it. This is my favorite thing. And like, that stuff, I don't think I will ever adjust to, because every time I hear it, I feel like happy crying. And I'm not that type of person. You guys know me. Like, I got pretty thick skin. Somebody could say the meanest, rudest thing to me. But when people come up to me and talk to me about how they connected with this story, man, it makes me kind of makes my knees weak. It's crazy to deal with. And it's humbling and an absolute honor.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing that we sort of talked about when you did your first show, which was Terrificon. I was there, and we just talked about how exhausted we were after the weekend. You more than me. I was exhausted from running the charity auction and running around having fun, spending money, digging through long boxes. You're exhausted from working your first con, and your voice was gone from pitching the book over and over, and interacting with people. And I reminded you what I told you the first day. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And now that
Mm.
you've had these other shows under your belt, I think you're starting to understand that. And I think kind of going hand in hand with what you were just talking about, and this will certainly be the case when you move on to your next series, is seeing those people. You go back to Calgary, you go back to Orlando in a year or two with your next project, but you see the same faces. You see people. Obviously, they're trusting you. They're trusting your creative ideas, your creative vision. They're trusting you with their hard-earned dollars to entertain them with the story.
Mhm.
That's got to be, very satisfying. So I look forward to that for you, because you've already had a taste of it with people. Yeah, I'm just going to buy the first issue, and then they come back the very next day of the next con, and they're like, I got to get the rest. That's just
Yeah.
fantastic. So happy for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it is like one of the greatest pleasures to starting this career. It will. I mean, not that I'm ever like this, but it's like I could be in the worst mood possible, and the minute somebody says that, like I'm smiling ear to ear. Quick shout out to everybody in the chat too. I just kind of peeked in there. Joe, Trinity from Second Street Marvel, Adi, Hail the Lore, Digital Cruiser, Patrick Stewart, Stephanie. Thank you guys. Appreciate you guys showing up, and thank you all for your support. For those of you that have already backed the Kickstarter, it means the world.
I'm curious, who does your animation for your wonderful video presentation on Kickstarter?
Oh man, that was Joey Schweikler, known as Geek Show Joe on YouTube. He did a fantastic job um, helping me out as we worked on this cool dramatic trailer that you're playing. And sort of with every Kickstarter, we always make little adjustments here and there to update it and add art from newer issues, or just find ways to make it smoother. Joey is fantastic, man. And if anybody is looking for some design help or logo design or animation / video editing design, definitely go check the guy out. He's honestly one of the sweetest people you will ever
Yeah.
meet. One of the nicest guys.
And he's in the
So,
chat too. He was in the chat for those watching on YouTube.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
will.
you got it.
I'll throw my endorsement behind Joey as well. If you've seen any of the videos on my channel, the Comic Source YouTube channel, don't do a lot, but they all have an amazing Comic Source intro that Joey put together that I couldn't be happier with. So yeah, he's definitely and quick too. Turns it around really fast.
Yeah, I should mention that Digital Cruiser has just purchased issues 1 through 5 on, he says, on Kickstarter. And we also got another comment from Houston 500 saying that I backed Kickstarter today. She says, I really need issue 4. Apparently, you were out when she saw you in Orlando.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't have issue 4 in hand yet at all at that point, but it was right before I did. And no, yeah, I mean, that was a fantastic show. Like,
It's a good problem to
what
have when you run out of.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, it's a pleasure, man. I mean, and being able to meet people who, like I said, man, connect with the material. It is like it leaves me speechless every time.
Can you tease us? Again, not to put the cart ahead of the horse here, but can you tease us what genre your next project that you're looking forward to? Now, I know you mentioned not writing. You're not to the point where you're writing Batman or anything. I think Zdarsky is the next guy on Batman in a couple weeks, but I'm sure by the time he's done with his run, you'll be next up to the plate. But in the
I mean,
meantime,
DC, call me.
yeah. In the meantime, what genre are you looking to tackle next?
So the next project is actually a series of short stories collected in an anthology, which I'm really, really excited to play with. You guys will see some familiar artistic collaborators. You'll also see some new artistic collaborators that I've had the pleasure of meeting over the course of the last year, just going to shows and networking there and online. I mean, it's really going to be, I think, for a while at least, it might be my calling card creatively. It gives me an option, the space to really flex creatively and play in a couple different spaces. I mean, there's in that anthology, that first anthology, there's going to be a supernatural murder mystery, a sort of wartime, I don't know, historical drama about two immortal warlords. There's going to be like a sci-fi future about businessmen. There will be a dystopian sci-fi story about the last cherry tree on Earth. Let's see. And a couple of other really cool sort of stories. That would be my first fantasy story as well. A lot of firsts, a lot of great new collaborators and old collaborators. And again, just stories I'm really proud of, just super digestible, a little bit for everybody and anybody. So I'm super excited to be able to put that out. I mean, we're looking to do anywhere in the neighborhood of like 6 to 8 short stories in there. And it's going to be a nice, sizable book. I think at a bare minimum, 72 pages, more than likely more than that. So aside from that, I have a 12 issue series that I've already plotted and I've written the first two scripts for. And I can say definitively from my side of the table, they're the best things I've ever done, like by a long shot. I've never been more proud of anything I've ever written. And I think they take everything that I've learned from the beginning of the Helix Project to penning some of the stories in the anthology, to just working with artists and understanding a little bit more about the collaborative nature of the medium. And they put it on full display. And genre-wise, it is a supernatural political thriller. So, another brand new space for me to play in.
Are you going to self-publish that, or are you hoping to shop it around and find a publisher? Haven't decided.
The initial goal is to shop it around first, finding a publisher who will also recognize Pocket Watch Press as the imprint for the story. If not, obviously we can always go back to good old reliable Kickstarter. We've continued to find more and more success on the platform, so that's not out of the realm of possibility, and that's not anything that I would shy away from if need be when the time comes.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, everybody, thanks everyone. Thanks for showing up in the chat. Trevor, thank you for sharing with us, getting us all hyped for issue number 5 of Area 51, the Helix Project. I for one, I can't. I'm looking forward to this. I'm still trying to figure out the ending because I'm thinking like you got all the pieces in place, the mystery, you got all the characters in place. Issue 4 was a pretty big setup. I'm really curious to see what happens in issue 5. But thank you, thank you for allowing us to interview, and we certainly wish you the most success. Everybody, if you're watching, go to Kickstarter, Area 51, the Helix Project. For $22, you can get up the first 5 issues. It's well worth it. While I've only read issue 4, I got to wait to issue 5, but I'm looking forward to it, and I encourage everybody to check it out. In the words of Houston 500 in the chat, can't wait for issue 5. And anything to add, Jace?
Yeah, just remind us. Yeah, you mentioned a couple of shows that you have for the rest of the year. What's your schedule? What's your con schedule for the rest of the year look like?
Yeah. Next, or no, not next. Jesus Christ, it's this week. Time is sliding by. This weekend, I'll be at Fan Expo Dallas, which I'm super, super excited for. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm a little bit brain dead. And then after Fan Expo Dallas, on the following Wednesday, I will be at Titan Comics in Dallas, doing a signing from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then I got to hop on a plane to go straight to Charlotte, North Carolina, because the following weekend, which is next weekend, I'll be at Heroes Con. So you guys can follow Pocket Watch Press on social media to stay up to date with where we'll be, when we'll be there, and our table numbers in these artist alleys, respectively. Keep up with us there. Shout out to everybody in the chat, especially those of you who have already backed the campaign. If you are looking to back, but maybe you're waiting for a paycheck, keep in mind Kickstarter does not actually charge your payment method until the campaign is over. So you have 40 days basically before the piper comes tolling. So if you haven't already, consider backing the project. Getting this early groundswell of support does a lot for us in terms of how the algorithms on Kickstarter and on the internet will promote the project. So if you haven't, consider backing it. I think we deliver a lot of value. There's a lot of really, really cool rewards, cool exclusive merchandise, options to get some private commissions from artists that work on the series, which I think is a really great opportunity because literally all of them are I think all of them are actually on entirely different continents now that I think about it. So beyond just being in different countries, great opportunity. Particular shout out to this man, Patrick Stewart, who has been an executive producer backed on that level of the series for the last couple campaigns. So super, super grateful. Obviously, thank you to the boys. It's been a long time since I've had the pleasure of chatting with you guys, but it always feels real easy getting back on the horse. So I appreciate you guys for having me.
Yeah, and thank you again to Patrick Stewart. He gave my first ever super sticker on this channel, $2.99 for the super chat. Thank you very much. I'm not accustomed to that, but thank you, Patrick. That was very kind of you. I'll make sure that I guarantee you that I'll make sure that $2.99 finds its way into a nice whiskey drink for Trevor, because I'm sure we'll be doing that possibly even at the New York Comic Con in October. We shall see.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, a bunch of shows this year to finish my answer to Jace's question. Terrificon back there in Connecticut, the end of July at the Mohegan Sun. Great show, really comics focused, and it'll be a real full circle moment for me. Just kind of going back to my first convention after a year, and seeing just how things have changed. August, we might be at Fan Expo Canada. I'm also thinking about just kind of having a month totally travel free. But in September, we'll be at the Memphis Comics Expo in Memphis, Tennessee. And then October, New York Comic Con and Baltimore Comic Con. So a pretty hefty year. And that's most of the big traveling. I'm sure you'll see us signing at a couple of our retailers who were kind enough to support the books. So shout out to Wonderland Comics in Putnam, Connecticut, AJ's Comics in Colchester, Connecticut, A Hero's Legacy in Manchester, Connecticut, Horizon Comics in Lancaster, California. Consider backing the book. Link in the description. Appreciate everybody.
Yeah, Patrick says the personal commissions are totally worth it, and I know that you quite enjoy. You're masterful at finding just the right spot to sign on the comic book, because that's always an art in and of itself. There's nothing worse than a creator that signs on the wrong spot on the cover of a nice comic book and ruins these covers. But you know exactly where to sign on these great covers from your artists. I'll give you that for sure.
Listen, man, I spend all this time and energy working with some incredible talent. The last thing I want to do is muddy up the waters and not let people appreciate what they do. So, and on that note, shout out to my creative team, man. I wouldn't be here without them. The artist of issues 1 through 4, Marcelo Salaza, the current artists for issue 5 and 6, Samuel E Wonze, variant cover artist Adrian Bonilla, colorist Marcio Ferri, and last but certainly not least, the comic book gold standard of lettering, Mr. Taylor Esposito. Big shout out to those guys. I literally and actually would not be where I am without those guys.
Fantastic. Well, everybody go and back the Kickstarter. Do it now. Don't wait, because then you might forget like I did last time. So go and back it now. And then you get to see it continue to creep up and see what stretch goals it reaches. So again, congrats on 4 successful so far, Trevor. Expect this one to be successful as well. Best of luck at your upcoming shows, and hope to see you at one of those shows soon.
Cheers, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yep. So that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Thanks for watching. I'm sure Rocky will have it up on his channel. So if you're checking it out later and you didn't get to ask your questions in the chat, leave them in the comments below. If you're listening on the audio only for the comic source, and you have questions, you can either head over to the YouTube video and leave your questions in the comment, or reach out to Trevor on social media. He has a presence on Twitter. Remind everybody what the Pocket Watch Press handle is on Twitter, Trev.
Yeah, so if you look up Pocket Watch Press, that will usually come up, but it is officially at PWatch Press because character limits, and then at Pocket Watch Press on Instagram and Facebook as well. Come join us. We'd love to have you.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Thanks for joining as always. We'll talk to you next time.
See you later.